in Toronto. It's a real pleasure to catch up once again with these guys. Mike on the far end there, Matt next to me from, of course, Marianas Trench. New album, Phantoms, your guys' 5th album, coming out just a couple weeks from now on March 1st, if I'm remembering correctly. And so, guys, just thanks a lot for doing this. I'm guessing you're kind of in ramp-up mode as far as promotion goes, but what have you guys been up to just in the last little while?
Well, it's been so busy. It's been so busy. We, with a new record comes everything that goes along with it. So, obviously there's promotion and stuff. We're getting ready for the tour. We're trying to rehearse. We're trying to, the last few weeks has been everything from album artwork, print out the lyrics, get everything. Sings this part? Figuring out how the heck we're going to play all these songs live, and it's been pretty overwhelming actually. But I think it's sort of the calm before the storm now. It seems like things are settling down a little bit, and we're just we're here for a couple of days in Toronto doing press, and then we get to go home and decompress, and then we're on the road for the next couple of months. So, yeah.
When did the process for Phantom start? It's been, I think it was 2014 when Astoria dropped your last album. I know you guys toured very extensively around the world in support of it. So when did you guys, I guess in a more conscious way, start going into the next album cycle and prepping for a new album?
I think before we were even done touring, the concept had come into play, like the sort of realm that the album is going to take place in. And then I think Josh just percolates those ideas for a while, and then once the music starts coming and you start shaping it to the album theme, that started about a year and a half ago, I guess.
Yeah, it's been about. I seem to recall being in the studio around January, beginning of January last year. So,
you say the concept for the album. I know your guys' albums often have concepts. For Astoria, it was kind of that '80s, kids or teen adventure theme, particularly around the Goonies. I had the pleasure of seeing you guys on the Astoria tour. It was a hell of a spectacle.
Thank you.
And so I'm wondering, what is there? Is there a similar? Is Phantom similar in the sense that there is a unified concept, or is it more, just a body of work?
Yes, there is a concept, a theme that we're sort of basing everything around, and it's nice to do that because it sort of provides these boundaries for you to write the record around and incorporate everything else, like from the clothes that we wear on stage to the production of the show to the press shots that we're doing, and everything sort of falls into this theme, and it makes it a little bit more cohesive. So we're not just pulling random ideas from everywhere, and it makes it a little more exciting for us because we can move from one thing to a new thing, and it's not just regurgitating the same content, the same ideas over and over again.
What would be that unifying vision and sound and stuff for this album? Is there something identifiable like you had with Astoria, or is it more, I guess, loose than that?
I think so. We've got sort of a haunted. I mean, the album's called Phantoms. The theme is sort of a haunted theme that was inspired by actually touring in New Orleans. Josh was really moved by the sort of voodoo culture down there, and I think he came home from that tour thinking, I'd like to do a record that's sort of pulled from that, and nothing really specific, but that was sort of our general theme, and then from there everything sort of just fell into place.
Was Josh producing this album, or were you guys working in your own studio again this time?
Yeah, Josh was producing it in his own studio, and it's cool when you've got that kind of resource at your disposal because you can really take your time and put it together really deliberately. You don't have to rush through any parts of the process. I know it's fun because you can experiment a lot, and then especially with this album, we're like, okay, so how do you do this album? Make it sound like Now, but make it sound like us, but make it sound like the theme. Yeah. And then next thing you know, you've got like theremins and harpsichords and guitars running through these really weird pedals, but it's a lot of fun.
What's the process like in recording? Like, how fully formed are the songs that Josh brings to you guys before recording?
I would say the songs are like fully formed in his brain. and then he's like, guys, we're gonna do this, and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. And he's and then we start piecing it together in the studio. So he'll sit in there and he'll map out a temp drum track and bass track or whatever, and then we just build it around there, and we don't demo ever. These ideas are in Josh's head, and they come out, and we start piecing the songs together, and then voila. Sometimes they suck, but most of the time they don't. And it's sort of weird, like, because you never, particularly on this record or in records from the past, we have these crazy long songs that we open the record with or close the record with, and when Josh first presents these to us, like, it's literally like, you have no idea what is going on. So I'm telling you, I don't know if you've seen Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie, but when Freddie says, okay, and then there's going to be the operatic section, and the guys are like, what are you talking about? And that's sort of like what happens to us every section of every song, but it seems to work.
Nice. You guys released a one-off single in 2017, Rhythm of Your Heart, exactly, which I was surprised isn't on this record. So I was just wondering kind of the strategy behind that. Was that kind of like a stopgap to keep fans engaged and kind of keep you top of mind between albums? Was that the thought behind it, or was it just...
Sure. I mean, it's always good to be... these days content is consumed so quickly that it's nice to have stuff out there to keep you relevant. But I think
it wouldn't have fit in with the album theme. I don't think it would have been forced in there. And this way, you get to put something out, let it be its own thing, and also have a new song out there to keep people entertained.
Yeah, we felt very strongly about that one. I mean, Josh has had it floating around, and we said let's put it out because it was a good song and it's done very well for us.
Are you guys thinking about that? Because you guys have an incredibly engaged fan base. I know, just like anecdotally, whenever we've had you guys on the cover of Canadian Musician, it always ends up being one of the most in-demand issues of the year. Your fans, fans that maybe aren't even musicians are contacting us trying to find out where they can get a copy and that kind of stuff, which is, maybe the main goal for any band nowadays is just how do you keep fans engaged when there's just so much content all the time, and attention, the attention span for music can turn over so quickly. So, what's been, I want to say strategy, maybe it's been less conscious than that, but how have you guys been so successful in creating such an engaged fan base?
I feel like we're lucky to get some traction off the top. That's the hardest part, is getting the first little bit of momentum. But we got to know our fans. We were meeting as many of them as we could after every show for years and years and years. And then I think, as we were talking about before, like when you're recording an album and you're being really deliberate about it and making these complex albums with these layers and stuff, it's interesting enough where somebody can not just listen to it a few times and be like, okay, on to the next thing. There's more to discover. And like, you'd be listening to something, oh my God, I didn't even notice that part was there. And then it's like there's these little Easter eggs all over the place. It's also coming from real emotional places rather than sort of contrived, I'm in the club kind of songs, which I think allows people to relate to it on a personal level and get a bit of an attachment. And then I think that's how we got that kind of loyalty. We didn't really know it was going to work out that way, but man, it sure is nice to have fans that believe in it as much as we do.
Yeah, loyalty is definitely the word. We have an issue. A lot of other bands, musicians have writers that work for them, so that when they're out on tour, somebody's back at home writing all the hits, and then as soon as they get back, they can jump into the studio and pump them out. Right? Mm-hmm. For us, because we do everything, that there's no time to. We go out on tour, and it's not a particularly inspiring place to write music. So then we got to come home, we decompress from tour, and then we get back in the studio and we start up the album cycle or up the recording process. And it's slow. So we can't rush music out. We're never going to be that band that's like content. So it comes down to the loyalty and the patience of our fans that seem, that seem to. They're waiting for us to put out music, and we try and go as fast as we can, but obviously the kind of music that we create takes time, so we appreciate your patience and loyalty, that's for sure.
Speaking of touring, like I mentioned, I saw you guys on the Astoria tour, and when I saw you guys, it was actually to write an article for one of Canadian Musician's sister magazines, Professional Sound, and we were doing a live audio story on the tour. And not that I very often at all have troubles with crew and that kind of stuff, but I was struck by how great everyone in your crew was to deal with, how accommodating were, just how genuinely nice everyone around you seemed to be. So I'm just curious to get your guys' perspective on that, just the importance for a touring band about having a crew around you that's obviously not only good at the technical part of their job, but you actually don't mind being on the road with.
If we're going to be in a bus for weeks and weeks and months at a time with the same people, they've got to be good people. And we're very fortunate that we've put together an incredible team, and it's a family, man. And so I miss our crew when we're not together, and we hang out when we're not working. They live all over the world, and it's wonderful to come together and everybody works together for the greater good of the project, and
Is there like a vetting process almost if you guys bring, and do you tend to bring the same crew out on the road from tour to tour?
We have a core group of guys that have been with us for a long time. There are a few positions that are sort of, people come and go. Yeah, fluid is a good word. But for the most part, like we seem to be working with people that we have worked with before, and we bring back. Only the best, yeah. I don't know. Is there any sort of process we go through?
I don't know. I think part of it is the fact that we're also good to them. I mean, I've heard stories about other bands that don't want to hang out with their crew. Well, they have to work 14-hour days, but
I think that's a really key part.
if they're willing to work and not sleep, we're really nice to them.
Yeah. Tours tend to be a top-down operation, and the artists can kind of set the mood for the entire thing. So I think that's a really important point that you mentioned is like, you treat them like friends, not just like hired hands.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's been, I know your first album came out in 2006, but I think you guys have actually been together since 2001-ish? 2000.
I joined in 2003. There were remnants or pieces of the band sort of forming earlier than that, but this lineup has been together since summer 2003.
And God knows when you're a band in the studio, on the road, and that kind of stuff, you guys in your hip pockets constantly. So the longevity that you guys have had just as a band, staying together as long as you have is impressive in its own right. I'm curious, how the dynamics have changed over time just as you grow up and, the natural process of that. But whether there's any kind of identifiable way in which you guys have been able to make it work all this time and stay friends and also stay productive artistically.
It's funny. I don't know, but I think the common denominator has been keeping a sense of humor because there are a lot of. It's never just like a paved road. There's so many side tracks and detours and hurdles and all these things that get in the way of you and your collective goal. And if you let them bring you down, it'll crush you, and you're probably not going to stick around that long. But we just sit together and cheer each other up and laugh about it. You kind of have to laugh about everything, and we definitely do a lot of that. And then we talk about the same stories for years and years and years.
Yeah, when somebody has a piece of new material and brings it, to the group, it's just
People come running from the other side. Whoa, new story! I don't want to miss it.
Yeah, it's very true.
You think the road would be a place for new stories, but my guess is actually,
It's absolutely not.
So
it's just the same thing over and over and over again. And really, you ask how things have changed, and they haven't. Like we all are older and have families and this and that, but no, things are between the four of us. It's pretty damn similar to how it was 15 years ago.
And you mentioned families. I actually don't know what the situation is in the band as far as families, but are some or all of you guys? Is there wives and kids and stuff involved in the group now?
Yeah.
A little bit of that, yeah.
How have you been able to juggle that side of things? Obviously that changes priorities and considerations that go into everything in your life. Like, how have you guys been able to keep this machine going?
Yeah, it's challenging, man. Being away from your family is very hard. I don't know how we do. A lot of FaceTime, and then just knowing that the work that we're, yeah, it sure is, and knowing that the work that we're doing is what puts a roof over everybody's head, and that's all you can do. I mean, the trade-off is that when we're not working, we're home all the time
with flexible schedules.
With flexible schedules. So when we're not on tour, you're there 100% of the time, and that's great. But so that's the trade-off, and
I tell you, I can't imagine what it was like for bands in the 60s, 70s, 80s when long distance calls were $2-3 a minute. You're even you barely be talking. Talk about isolated. But now with mobile devices that can do everything, you feel like you're kind of connected all the time. It's just not in person.
To bring it back to, before we have to wrap up here, let's bring it back to Phantoms. Again, it's coming out on March 1st. We talked a little bit about, the theme, the concept behind it, but just sonically speaking, what can people expect from it? Is it, I don't think it's a radical deviation. It still sounds like Marianas Trench, but for fans that haven't heard it yet, essentially what can they expect?
I think it's cool because it's just another direction that we haven't gone. So it is Marianas Trench, but it's pretty moody, and we get to pull at some new tricks that we've never done before, especially those album tracks. Those are my favorite songs.
Really?
Yeah.
Which ones are you thinking of?
Echoes of You and The Killing Kind. They're so good, yeah.
What is it about them that's standing out to you on a musical level?
I don't know. It's funny, like going into The Killing Kind, there's this transitional piece, and it's just audio with music. And my son is actually like, "Oh my God, it's too scary. I don't want to hear that. Like, it's scary, but maybe it's a little too scary." And I'm like, "It's just music," and it's amazing that you can do that with music. And then you go into this song, and it comes down to this little like, blunk, blunk, blunk. It's really minimalistic, but it's like it feels like you're in a movie, and it's. I don't think we've ever come that close to accomplishing that before.
Yeah, cool. You're right. Never thought about it that way.
In crafting an album, are you guys thinking of those dynamics, the highs and the lows and the tempos, and just kind of keeping it kind of a living, changing thing throughout the track listing? And are you thinking of that as you when you go to put the track listing together?
Yeah, the track listing is a complicated process.
And important too.
And important, yeah. Josh puts a lot of thought into that. It's and I think he's sort of thinking about that right from the get-go. He's like, all right, well, we're going to need, we're going to get the upbeat song, and you got maybe the radio-y song, and now we're going to need something that brings it down, and something creative here. I don't know. It's got the ebbs and flows to the record, and that's meant to be listened to from front to back. All of our albums have been a journey for the year, and we hope you enjoy them.
I'm being given the wrap it up sign here because I know you guys got to run. But just quickly, where can folks check you out? I know you have a tour announced. Where are you going to be hitting up?
We're everywhere. We've got a month in Canada through March. We've got 5 weeks in the States through May. Just check out our website, marianastrench.net, all the information.